Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast. Ozcast. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
All right, welcome everyone to our deep dive today. We're going to be looking at Argentina-Israel relations. And specifically, we're going to be honing in on President Milei's upcoming trip to Israel.
Interesting.
And the main source we're going to be looking at for this is an article from the Times of Israel. And it's titled, Argentina's Milei to Visit Israel March 23, Aiming to Boost Ties. And this article was published on March 3rd, 2025.
All right.
Now, what makes this this visit particularly interesting is that it's happening on day 514 of the Israel-Hamas war.
Oh, wow. That certainly is interesting timing, isn't it? It really kind of raises a lot of questions about what exactly is the purpose of this visit and what are the potential implications.
Yeah, so let's get into some of the basics here.
Okay.
The article states that President Milei is scheduled to arrive in Israel on March 23rd. And the stated aim of this visit, according to the Argentine presidential spokesperson, Manuel Adorni, is to strengthen ties between the two nations.
This will actually be Milei's second visit to Israel since he became president. Remember, he met with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu back in February of 2024?
Oh, that's right.
So, there's clearly a pattern here of engagement.
Yeah, and going back to the timing, day 514 of the Israel-Hamas war.
Right.
That's not exactly, a quiet time for a diplomatic visit.
No, it's not. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It suggests that this is perhaps more than just a routine diplomatic exchange.
Yeah.
This could be a very deliberate signal of support for Israel during what is obviously a very challenging time for them.
Yeah. Could this also be an attempt by Argentina to position themselves as a potential mediator in the conflict?
That's definitely a possibility worth considering. Argentina does have a history of involvement in international conflicts.
Yeah.
And they often advocate for peaceful resolutions.
But wouldn't that be a tricky position to navigate given all the different actors involved?
Oh, absolutely. Any attempt at mediation would require a very deep understanding of the historical context, the current dynamics, and then also the interests of all the parties involved. It would be a very delicate balancing act, maintaining good relations with both Israel and their neighbors.
And what about Milei's own political leanings? How might that influence his approach to this visit and Argentina's role in the region?
Well, Milei is known for his strong libertarian views.
Right.
And while he has expressed support for Israel in the past, it remains to be seen how his ideology will actually translate into concrete actions on the international stage.
So while strengthening ties is kind of like the overarching goal here, the specifics of what that really entails and how that's going to be achieved are still kind of ambiguous.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think that's where it really starts to get interesting. To really understand the potential implications here, I think we need to delve a little deeper into the historical relationship between Argentina and Israel, and also look at the current geopolitical landscape of the Middle East.
Yeah, and that's where this deep dive is really going to begin. So let's unpack some of these layers and see what kind of insights we can uncover for you today.
Well, I think a good place to start is with the history of relations between Argentina and Israel. Historically, they've had a pretty strong bond,
Right.
marked by cooperation in a bunch of areas, like trade, technology, agriculture.
Yeah, you mentioned agriculture earlier. Could you talk a bit more about that? How could that play a role in this visit?
Yeah, absolutely, especially given the kind of current global situation.
Right.
Well, you have to remember that Argentina is a major agricultural producer, known for its exports, soybeans, wheat, beef, things like that. Israel, on the other hand, well, they face challenges in terms of food security.
Okay.
Because they have limited arable land and water resources.
So there's potential there for like a partnership that benefits both?
Exactly. A mutually beneficial partnership where Argentina could contribute to enhancing Israel's food security, and that Israel could share its expertise in things like agricultural technology and innovation with Argentina.
That makes sense. It's all about kind of leveraging each other's strengths.
That's right.
What about the security aspect? The article mentions strengthening ties, but it didn't get into specifics.
Right. Well, given that there is this ongoing conflict, security cooperation is likely pretty high on the agenda. It could involve things like, increased intelligence sharing, maybe joint training exercises, and collaboration on cybersecurity, which is, a growing concern for pretty much every country these days.
Yeah, for sure. So we've talked about some potential areas of cooperation, But are there any potential challenges or points of friction that could come up?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Diplomatic relationships are very rarely without their complexities.
Right.
Argentina has traditionally maintained good relationships with a number of Arab nations, so Milei's pretty open support for Israel could actually strain those ties, especially given everything going on with the Israel-Hamas war.
So there's this delicate balancing act.
There really is.
Yeah.
And you also can't ignore the potential for disagreements on specific policies, or even, maybe just different approaches to regional issues.
Right.
I mean, for example, Argentina might advocate for a two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Yeah.
But Israel might have, reservations about that.
We've mostly been focusing on kind of like the geopolitical implications here. But what about kind of the human element? How do you think Milei's visit will be received by Argentinians?
Oh, public opinion will definitely play a role here. While some Argentinians might be in favor of closer ties with Israel, others might express some concerns, particularly regarding the ongoing humanitarian situation in Gaza.
So there's going to be a range of opinions within Argentina.
Exactly. And I think understanding those perspectives is absolutely crucial to kind of grasping the full picture here. It's not just about, government-to-government relations.
Right.
It's also about people-to-people connections and shared values, things like that.
Yeah, it all kind of paints this very complex picture. Milei's visit, while seemingly pretty straightforward on the surface, it's actually got all this baggage, historical baggage, geopolitical calculations, and even those domestic considerations that you just mentioned.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the potential outcomes are, honestly, at this point, still very uncertain.
Right.
Will this visit actually lead to, like a genuine strengthening of ties between the two nations? Will it have a positive impact on, regional stability, or will it maybe create some new tensions? I mean, those are all open questions that we just don't know yet.
And those are the things that really make this visit fascinating, to analyze and unpack. It's kind of like watching this high-stakes diplomatic game unfold.
It really.
With the potential to really reshape these regional alliances and power dynamics. But what I find particularly interesting is the possibility of Argentina maybe emerging as a key player in future peace negotiations. Could they bridge the divide between Israel and Palestine?
Now, that is a thought-provoking question. Argentina does have that history of kind of mediating these international conflicts.
Right.
And really advocating for dialogue and peaceful resolutions.
And as you said earlier, they've managed to kind of maintain relationships on both sides of this complex conflict.
Right.
Could that give them a unique advantage?
It's definitely possible. But, as we've already discussed, mediating a conflict like this would require navigating kind of this minefield of all these competing interests and historical grievances.
So while it's an interesting idea, Argentina as a peacemaker, it's not a guaranteed outcome.
Exactly.
Right.
And I think that's an important takeaway for our listeners as they continue to follow this story. It's crucial to approach these developments, with a critical eye, considering all the various perspectives involved, and also thinking about, the potential challenges ahead.
It's all about, nuanced analysis and understanding the complexities rather than jumping to conclusions.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that's really what makes, a deep dive like this so valuable. It's about equipping you with the knowledge and the context so that you can actually form your own informed opinions.
So as we wrap up this deep dive today, what are the key insights you want our listener to walk away with? So let's recap a little bit. What have we learned today? We started with the announcement of President Milei's upcoming visit to Israel.
Right.
It's scheduled for March 23rd. And the stated aim is to strengthen ties between the two nations.
Yeah.
But we've kind of dug a little deeper than that.
We have.
Yeah.
We really have. We've gone way beyond that initial statement and discovered just how many layers there really are to this.
Absolutely.
We talked about historical context to this relationship between these two countries, Argentina and Israel. And we highlighted, how they've been cooperating in areas like trade, technology, agriculture.
And we also considered, the possibility of deepening those ties, especially, in terms of food security and in terms of security cooperation.
Absolutely. And of course, we couldn't ignore the potential challenges and the complexities that come with all of this.
Yeah.
We talked about how Milei's visit could impact Argentina's relationships with other countries in the region.
Yeah, especially Arab nations.
Especially Libertarian.
Yeah.
They have to kind of walk this fine line. And then we also touched upon Milei's own personal views.
Right. His libertarian views.
His libertarian views, exactly. And how those might influence his approach to diplomacy and all these international issues.
And we talked about what people within Argentina think.
Yeah, domestic considerations, how people are reacting to all of this.
So it really does seem like we're left with more questions than answers at this point.
A lot of ways, yeah.
I mean, will this visit actually be the start of a new era of cooperation
Right.
between Argentina and Israel? What are they going to actually do to strengthen ties? And what role, if any, could Argentina play in bringing peace to the Middle East?
You've hit on all the big questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those are the questions that you should all be thinking about as you follow this story. Keep in mind everything we've discussed today, the history, the geopolitical factors, and the human element. All of the people involved in this.
Because it's rarely just black and white.
It's not.
Mm.
International relations are complicated. There are always shades of gray, competing interests. Sometimes things happen that nobody intended.
So think about all of this. And remember that every action on the global stage has a ripple effect.
It does. What might seem like, just a visit between two countries can actually have a huge impact on regional dynamics and, even the balance of power globally.
So could Argentina, with its unique history and its relationships in the region, emerge as a major player in the Middle East? Could they be? A force for dialogue, a force for peace in a region that has seen so much conflict.
It's possible. It's definitely a possibility, but it's going to be a really challenging road for them.
Yeah, only time will tell what role Argentina will ultimately choose to play.
I think that's a great way to put it.
It really is fascinating to watch how this unfolds.
It is. International relations are constantly evolving. You get unexpected twists and turns. You never know what's going to happen next.
So stay informed, stay curious, and keep asking those questions.
Those tough questions.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. I hope you found it insightful and thought-provoking. We'll be back soon to explore some other current events. We'll keep digging beneath the surface to uncover those hidden layers and connect the dots for you. Until then, stay curious and stay engaged.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.